Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a city that isn't just, buildings and roads, but a living, breathing thing that literally learns and grows, constantly adapting. A place where every park, every school, every community garden isn't just a physical space, but a vital, interconnected part of a citywide brain, like a vibrant network of synapses. Sounds pretty wild, right? Today, we're taking a deep dive into an absolutely fascinating and, well, truly radical concept: Neuro-Permaculture Networks. It's a groundbreaking new paradigm for urban design that brilliantly weaves together seemingly disparate fields, revealing these profound connections we often overlook. We're drawing our insights for this deep dive from Schuyler Fiction's compelling essay, Neuro-Permaculture Networks, integrating educational neuroscience, urban stewardship, and regenerative design for resilient cities. Our mission today is to discover how understanding something as fundamental as brain plasticity, alongside the intricate workings of urban social ecological networks and the regenerative wisdom of permaculture principles, can converge to offer a truly groundbreaking framework. A framework for creating more resilient, equitable, and genuinely regenerative cities specifically for you. Get ready for some serious aha moments because the insights here are, well, they're profound.
What's truly fascinating here, and what this deep dive will definitely reveal, is how this concept tackles some of the most pressing and interconnected challenges of our time. We're talking about rapid urbanization, the pervasive issue of food insecurity, and widespread ecological degradation. It's a big tangle of problems. And the essay suggests that the solutions to these complex problems aren't found by addressing them in isolation, or by applying quick fixes. Instead, it argues the path forward lies in truly integrated systems, in understanding how these challenges are fundamentally linked at a deeper level. This raises an important question for all of us. What if our cities could literally adapt, learn, and maybe even heal themselves like a living organism, rather than simply being static structures? This essay proposes a revolutionary shift in perspective. We stop seeing cities as just segmented infrastructure, just roads, buildings, pipes, and start seeing them as dynamic, co-evolving networks. Networks of human brains, intricate social systems, and interconnected ecosystems. It's really about moving beyond those traditional silos to forge holistic, living solutions.
So, if we embrace this idea of a city as a living learning system, what does this all mean for the very real challenges facing cities today? I mean, our sources paint a pretty clear and honestly somewhat urgent picture. By 2050, more than two-thirds of the world's population will be living in urban areas. That's huge.
Massive demographic shift there.
Exactly. And while cities are hubs of innovation and culture, many are simultaneously struggling with profound issues: deep social inequity, rampant environmental decay, and persistent food scarcity. And the traditional approach to urban planning often seems to, well, exacerbate these problems because it compartmentalizes everything. It puts physical infrastructure over here, social systems over there, and human development in another box entirely, almost as if they exist independently.
Like they don't influence each other.
Yeah, you might have a city planner focused purely on traffic flow, a social worker dedicated to community programs, and an environmentalist championing green spaces. But rarely do their plans fully intersect in a fundamental systemic way that leverages their inherent interconnectedness.
It's like trying to solve a complex puzzle by focusing on one piece at a time without ever looking at the whole picture. Very inefficient and often ineffective. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the essay highlights that this pervasive segmentation isn't just inefficient, it's a critical oversight with significant consequences. This compartmentalized thinking actively prevents us from seeing how human brains, social networks, and ecological systems are in a constant state of coevolution. They're not separate entities. They're deeply intertwined and constantly influencing one another.
Okay, so it's a dynamic feedback loop we're often ignoring.
Precisely. And the lack of integrated thinking means we consistently miss out on opportunities for holistic solutions that could address multiple problems at once, creating synergistic benefits. Instead of merely tackling symptoms like building more food banks when people are hungry, which is important but not a root solution, we could be designing urban systems that prevent food insecurity from arising in the first place, or fostering environments that naturally enhance cognitive development and well-being.
Makes sense. Less reactive, more proactive and generative.
Exactly. This deep dive directly addresses this gap by bringing three distinct academic fields, which traditionally operate in their own research bubbles, into a powerful dialogue. First, we have educational neuroscience, specifically drawing on the insightful work of Hagar Goldberg. Her research emphasizes that the incredible phenomenon of experience-dependent neuroplasticity, particularly during childhood and adolescence, offers a unique and powerful opportunity for designing learning environments that literally shape and optimize the developing brain.
Literally shape the brain. Wow.
Think about that for a moment. The very spaces we inhabit as children, the interactions we have, the sensory stimuli we receive, they directly influence the physical architecture and functional capacity of our neural networks. This isn't just abstract, it's a biological reality.
Okay, that's one piece. What's the second field?
The second field crucial to this synthesis is urban stewardship networks, explored through the groundbreaking work of Michele Romolini and her colleagues. Their research highlights a critical absence in current literature: the lack of robust, integrative frameworks for linking the social and ecological dimensions within community-led efforts for urban sustainability. They meticulously point out that while we often study social network structures, who connects with whom in a community, and we also study ecological outcomes like air quality or tree cover, we rarely have a consistent framework that bridges the two.
So we're missing how the people part connects to the nature part in practice.
Exactly. We're missing how citizen groups, nonprofits, and agencies working together through their intricate web of relationships directly influence and enhance the urban environment in a profoundly connected way.
Right. And the third foundational piece.
The third is permaculture, with critical insights from Denise Jancy van Runsberg and Karen Curran. Their comprehensive work reveals that permaculture's immense potential to address pervasive urban food insecurity is largely unexplored, despite its robust regenerative design principles. Permaculture, traditionally applied in rural settings to create these highly productive, self-sustaining agricultural ecosystems that mimic nature's wisdom. Well, it has an immense but underutilized potential for creating resilient, local food systems right within our urban fabric.
Food systems in the city. Okay.
Yes. This could directly tackle pressing issues like food deserts, where healthy food is scarce, and reduce our reliance on vulnerable global supply chains. So to recap, we're looking at the incredible malleability of the brain, the dynamic organization of community networks, and the regenerative power of ecological design, all interconnected by this fundamental concept of adaptability and constant evolution.
Here's where it gets really interesting and where the true aha moment of this deep dive lies, I think. These three seemingly disparate fields, educational neuroscience, urban stewardship networks, and permaculture from different disciplines and scales, are all connected by one profoundly powerful and unifying idea: plasticity.
Plasticity, yes.
And it isn't just a buzzword, it's the inherent capacity of systems at every level to adapt, to learn, to reorganize, and to change in response to their environment and experiences. And when we recognize this insight, the possibilities for urban design become, well, revolutionary. Let's unpack how each field reveals this fundamental capacity.
Absolutely. Let's start with educational neuroscience and brain plasticity, building on Goldberg's insights again. She vividly describes the human brain, especially during that crucial period of the first 25 years or so, as essentially a construction site, a dynamic, ever-evolving landscape.
At construction site, I like that. Constantly under development.
Exactly. Every single learning experience, whether it's formal education in a classroom or informal interactions playing in a park, literally remodels and reshapes our neural networks. This ongoing process is what we call experience-dependent neuroplasticity. Okay. When you learn something new, like mastering a musical instrument, or navigating a new city, or even just having a deep conversation, your brain isn't just passively recording information, it's actively strengthening or pruning neural connections. You know the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. That's basically it. This means the very physical structure and functional capacity of your brain are being continuously molded by your interactions with the world around you.
Not just during childhood, right? Though maybe more intensely then.
Right, throughout life, but definitely with greater intensity in those early years.
So it's not just about what you learn or even how you learn it, but crucially, where and in what kind of environment you learn it. The environment isn't just a backdrop, it's an active participant in shaping who we become, literally at the neurological level.
Precisely. Goldberg talks about the profound importance of riding the neuroplasticity wave. Educational practices, both formal and informal, during childhood and adolescence have an outsized influence on brain structure and function, simply because the brain is incredibly malleable then. Think of it like wet clay. It's much easier to sculpt and shape when it's soft and responsive.
Makes sense.
So neuroscience can powerfully inform educators and urban designers alike about optimal conditions for learning and development. Factors like balanced stress levels, sufficient sleep, regular physical activity, play, and rich, varied sensory environments. Imagine designing schools or community centers where every element, from sounds to textures to access to nature, is intentionally optimized to support brain development, foster creativity, reduce cognitive fatigue.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
And providing equitable and stimulating environments can significantly support cognitive development, particularly for those facing socioeconomic disadvantages, potentially reducing disparities in learning outcomes. However, and this is important, Goldberg also issues a crucial warning against neuromyths and overgeneralization.
Ah, right. The pop science misinterpretations.
Exactly. These are misinterpretations or oversimplifications of complex brain science that can lead to ineffective, misleading, or even harmful practices, like the debunked idea we only use 10% of our brain, or that certain brain training games are a magic bullet.
Yeah, I've heard those.
Valid research is complex, expensive, and requires intensive, rigorous interdisciplinary effort to ensure findings are applied appropriately and ethically, avoiding that kind of reductionism.
That's a truly crucial point about not oversimplifying such complex science. It underscores the need for careful evidence-based design.
Okay. Now, moving from the individual brain to the collective brain of a city, let's look at urban stewardship networks and adaptive capacity. Romolini and colleagues highlight a different but equally vital kind of plasticity, right?
Yes, they view cities as living networks, not just static places. Sustainable and resilient cities aren't merely about physical infrastructure. They absolutely require active and dynamic engagement from diverse actors, public agencies, nonprofits, businesses, citizens, everyone. Their complex and evolving relationships form these intricate adaptive networks.
Adaptive networks, oh, and this is precisely where the missing frameworks come into sharp focus. The existing academic literature often tends to separate the study of social network structures from the analysis of ecological outcomes. So, a study might map how community groups connect or separately assess tree cover. But Romolini et al. Argue we rarely have consistent, robust frameworks that integrate how the connections between those social groups directly influence, sustain, or degrade that tree cover or other vital ecological outcomes.
So connecting the dots between people working together and the actual environmental result.
Exactly. They powerfully argue that urban sustainability takes a network. Civic stewardship groups, often operating organically outside formal government structures, are particularly adept at bridging sectors and bringing together different perspectives, knowledge, and resources.
Yeah.
Understanding how these groups function requires sophisticated social network analysis tools, but it also fundamentally requires recognizing their deep embedding within larger ecological systems.
Can you give an example?
Sure, they give a compelling example of StewMap, the Stewardship Mapping and Assessment Project. This project is a powerful tool that maps the geographic reach, relationships, and resource flows of stewardship organizations across a city, revealing how these connections influence ecological outcomes. Yet, even a sophisticated project like StewMap currently lacks a truly consistent and deeply integrated social ecological framework, meaning we're still missing pieces of the puzzle when it comes to understanding the full interplay between human organization and ecological health.
It's like having two incredibly detailed maps that you haven't quite overlaid perfectly to see the rich, hidden patterns of the terrain.
That's a great analogy. It really is.
Well, it's about making those implicit connections between human collaboration and environmental outcomes explicit and measurable, revealing the city's collective immune system at work, perhaps.
Or its adaptive capacity, yeah. Its
Well.
ability to learn and respond collectively.
Okay. Finally, for permaculture and ecosystem adaptation, Jancy van Rensburg and Purin bring us to a fundamentally different yet equally adaptable kind of system, natural ecosystems themselves. They're specifically addressing urban food insecurity, which is a massive and growing global issue, particularly acute in sub-Saharan Africa, as you mentioned.
Yes, and their review finds that permaculture, this regenerative design approach, has been largely neglected in urban planning discussions, despite its immense and, frankly, proven potential.
Why the neglect, do they think?
Well, permaculture, at its core, is about observing and mimicking natural ecosystems. Think about a mature forest. It's self-sustaining. It generates its own fertility, manages water, provides habitat, produces abundance with minimal external inputs. Highly biodiverse, highly resilient.
Right, nature's blueprint.
Permaculture aims to apply these natural principles to human-managed systems, emphasizing design that preserves biodiversity, minimizes waste, maximizes integration. This makes it a strong potential contributor to resilient urban food systems. Yet, as you asked, it's often seen as niche, maybe only for rural or alternative contexts, not bustling cities.
Yeah, kind of a hippie
Uh,
thing maybe for some people.
Perhaps that perception exists. The reasons are complex, often seen as anecdotal, limited empirical research specifically on urban permaculture, and the inherent complexity of urban systems, land use competition, fragmented governance, deep inequalities makes implementation challenging. Plus, there's a significant geographic bias in existing research, very little study focusing on the global south, where food insecurity is most acute and permaculture could have a huge impact.
So a call for more solid research and better integration into planning.
Definitely. The core idea here is that ecosystems themselves are plastic and adaptable. They evolve, change. Permaculture seeks to leverage that natural adaptive capacity in our human designs, working with nature, not against it.
So on the surface, educational neuroscience, urban stewardship networks, and permaculture might seem completely different fields. One's about brains, one's about people organizing, one's about plants and ecosystems. But our deep dive reveals some amazing fundamental underlying parallels and conceptual bridges. This is where the magic truly happens, I think, connecting these seemingly unrelated ideas into a cohesive, powerful vision. What's the most striking parallel?
It truly is fascinating how they resonate. The first, and perhaps most profound parallel, is adaptive capacity and plasticity. All three fields fundamentally emphasize systems that learn, change, and adapt over time. It's the common thread. In neuroscience, as we discussed, it's crystal clear.
Yeah.
The brain continuously reorganizes based on experience. Neuroplasticity, your brain is literally different after learning something new.
Right, the construction site analogy again.
In urban stewardship networks, adaptability emerges from the diverse and fluid connections among actors. When different groups collaborate and exchange information, they can collectively respond more effectively to new challenges, like climate impacts or social crises. They learn and adjust. And permaculture, similarly, relies on the inherent adaptive properties of ecosystems, encouraging designs that mimic natural succession, how ecosystems evolve and incorporate continuous feedback loops, like a gardener observing and adjusting.
Designing systems that aren't static, but dynamic, resilient, adaptable.
Exactly. This single idea unlocks a radically new approach to urban design, building cities that are inherently designed to learn and change.
So they're all about dynamic evolution and continuous learning rather than rigid, static states. That's a huge shift in perspective. What's the next key parallel that jumped out?
The second involves learning environments and ecological niches. Educational neuroscience unequivocally stresses that the environment profoundly shapes neural development and learning. A stimulating, supportive, safe environment literally helps the brain grow and learn more effectively.
Provides the right niche for brain development.
Precisely. Permaculture, on the other hand, recognizes that ecological niches, those specific microenvironments formed by polycultures, multiple crops together, and guilds, mutually supportive groups of plants and animals, are crucial for a thriving ecosystem. Both fields highlight the critical importance of thoughtful design. The right environmental conditions nurture growth and resilience, whether for neurons or food forests.
And stewardship networks fit in here too.
Yes, they extend this concept to social environments. These collaborative networks function as vital social niches where knowledge, resources, and shared motivations circulate, allowing diverse groups to flourish and achieve collective goals.
That's a powerful connection, thinking about social interactions and collaborations as their own kind of nurturing niche. Okay. And what about how these systems are fundamentally structured? Do they share common organizational principles?
That leads us to the third parallel, deeply rooted in network science. Networks is organizing principles. Neural networks in our brains, social networks in communities, ecological networks in nature, they all share profound structural similarities.
Like what kind of similarities?
They all exhibit properties like modularity, distinct clusters, specializing in functions, like brain regions or community organizations. They also have hubs, highly connected nodes facilitating flow across the system, like a key brain region or community leader. And importantly, resilience through redundancy. If one part fails, others can often pick up the slack. Network science even shows both brain and social networks often have small world properties, relatively short paths between nodes, balancing efficiency and specialization.
Fascinating, like nature figured out the best way to wire things up.
It seems that way. And Romolini et al. Explicitly call for linking social and ecological networks, emphasizing that understanding these interdependencies is key. Jancy van Rensburg and Purin implicitly invoke network thinking too, highlighting interactions among food systems, ecosystems, and communities. It's seeing the city as an interconnected web at every level.
From microscopic neurons to vast ecological flows.
Okay, and these systems also operate over specific periods of time, right? Timing matters.
Exactly, which brings us to temporal scales and critical periods. Neuroplasticity research highlights critical or sensitive periods when the brain is especially receptive to input, like language acquisition in early childhood, there's a window. Similarly, permaculture recognizes distinct successional stages in ecosystem development. A new garden evolves over years into a mature food forest, and interventions need to be timed right.
You don't plant a tree expecting fruit tomorrow. Right. And urban stewardship networks also evolve. Building trust and cooperation takes time, sustained effort. Understanding these unique temporal dynamics is crucial for effective interventions, knowing when and how to apply leverage for the greatest impact.
Whether it's an educational program, a planting strategy, or a community policy. Got it. And finally, a really important one given the challenges cities face: equity.
That's equity and inclusion, a critical ethical dimension woven into this framework. Goldberg's research underscores that socioeconomic status significantly influences brain development and learning opportunities. Disparities start early. Romolini et al. Emphasize the need for diverse participation in stewardship networks because excluding voices, particularly from marginalized communities, weakens the network's adaptability and leads to less equitable outcomes.
Makes sense. You need all perspectives.
And Janci van Rensburg and Purin critically highlight that much permaculture research neglects contexts where food insecurity is greatest, like the Global South, missing crucial opportunities. So all three fields collectively recognize that deep-seated inequality fundamentally undermines resilience across all levels. A city that isn't equitable cannot truly be resilient long-term. Any systemic solution must actively address these disparities.
This brings us to the core of Schuyler Fiction's radical proposal: conceiving cities not just as places, but as living, learning systems, a truly integrated paradigm where human cognitive development, social networks, and ecological processes are not just linked, but actively co-designed. Imagine the potential. Let's break down the specific elements of this truly integrated framework. This is where it really comes together.
This synthesis truly offers a transformative, hopeful vision. The first fundamental element is brain-responsive urban design. If we accept that neuroplasticity is potent, especially early on, then it follows logically our urban environment should be intentionally designed to provide stimulating, safe, equitable spaces that actively support cognitive and emotional development. This isn't just about building more schools. It's about reimagining every part of the city: community centers, libraries, parks, public art, designed to actively encourage play, curiosity, creativity, social interaction.
Using neuroscience principles in design.
Exactly. The concept of environmental enrichment, known from neuroscience to promote neurogenesis, new brain cell growth, and improve things like spatial learning. Imagine integrating diverse nature elements, varied textures, soundscapes, multisensory experiences into urban design consciously.
Our cities could literally become places that make us smarter, more balanced, more creative just by living in them.
That's the potential. Think about a playground not just with swings, but with varied natural surfaces, plants to touch and smell, nooks that encourage imaginative play and social problem solving.
So every playground could literally be a brain-building zone, thoughtfully designed, powerful. What about connecting people and fostering collective intelligence?
That leads directly to the second element: civic learning networks. Urban stewardship networks, illuminated by Romolini et al., can be reimagined as expansive citywide learning networks, interconnecting schools, community organizations, research institutions, businesses, citizens. The purpose wouldn't just be managing spaces, it'd be actively sharing knowledge, ecology, food systems, mental health, social justice.
Fostering collective intelligence across the city.
Exactly. Allowing the city to adapt more effectively. Using Romolini et al.'s framework, data about social interactions and ecological outcomes could inform policy, making governance more responsive. And crucially, youth participation should be central. Engaging young people in stewardship, planting trees, monitoring water quality builds social capital, leadership skills, and provides invaluable experiential learning that reinforces neuroplasticity during those critical years.
They're not just learning about the city, they're actively building it.
Right. Internalizing skills and connections for life, giving them real agency.
Truly transformative. And what about the practical challenge of feeding a growing urban population? How does that fit?
That's the third crucial element: permaculture-inspired food systems. Permaculture principles, found by Janci van Rensburg and Purin to be underutilized, can utterly transform underused urban spaces. Imagine vacant lots, rooftops, sterile schoolyards converted into vibrant, productive, edible learning environments. The core principles, diversity, integration, minimal waste, align perfectly with urban resilience needs.
Like those multi-layered food forests you mentioned.
Exactly. School gardens that aren't just small patches, but food forests with fruit trees, berry bushes, edible ground covers, beneficial insect habitats, serving as living outdoor classrooms where students learn biology, systems thinking, cooperation, nutrition, practical skills, hands-on, deeply engaging.
And providing food locally.
Yes, reducing dependency on vulnerable global supply chains, addressing food insecurity, providing fresh, healthy produce right where it's most needed.
So the garden is both food source and dynamic classroom. Beautiful synergy, but how do we connect these different scales? Individual brain, neighborhood network, citywide ecosystem.
That brings us to multi-scale feedback loops, the fourth critical element. Neuro-Permaculture networks are designed to operate dynamically across multiple interconnected scales. Microscale, design of classrooms, homes influences neural development. Mesoscale,
Yeah.
neighborhood networks affect resources, social support, local ecology. Macroscale, city policies impact ecology, food systems. The key insight is that feedback across these scales should be explicit, intentional, continuous.
Can you give an example of that feedback loop?
Sure. Data from sensors in urban permaculture gardens, soil health, water retention, biodiversity could inform teaching practices in nearby neural learning spaces, showing students in real time what thrives and why. This data could also inform larger urban planning decisions, revealing which green spaces are most utilized, most productive, most impactful. It's creating a continuous learning loop for the entire city.
Making the city truly intelligent and adaptive. Okay. And finally, to make this visionary framework actionable and prove its worth, we absolutely need to measure it, right? How?
Exactly. The fifth element is integrative metrics and research. To truly operationalize and validate this, researchers must develop new, sophisticated metrics capturing neural, social, and ecological outcomes simultaneously, moving beyond silos. For instance, future studies might measure tangible improvements in executive function planning, problem-solving, attention in kids, and urban garden programs. These cognitive improvements could then be mapped against the network connectivity of the stewardship groups involved, using tools like StewMap, and against the biodiversity metrics of the gardens themselves.
Wow, connecting all three levels with data.
Yes. This rigorous, multifaceted approach directly addresses Romolini et al. Call for hypothesis testing and standardized data, and fills the empirical gaps Janci van Rensburg and Purin identified for urban permaculture. It moves us beyond anecdotes to rigorous understanding.
Providing the data needed to really make the case for these projects. Got it. Now, no revolutionary idea, brilliant as it sounds, is without hurdles. Our deep dive needs to look at the critical counterpoints and practical challenges the essay itself thoughtfully raises. It's crucial for you, the listener, to get the full picture potential and obstacles.
Absolutely essential for critical thinking. Let's start with educational neuroscience limitations. Goldberg herself warns that generalizing lab findings to messy, real-world classrooms or urban environments is contentious. There's a real risk of those neuromyths we talked about.
Right, the oversimplifications that lead to bad practice.
Exactly, like the left brain, right brain learner myth. Plus, neuroplasticity isn't unlimited. There are biological constraints, genetics, critical periods, basic resource needs like nutrition, sleep, safety.
So how does the neuropermaculture framework address this?
By consciously coupling neuroscience insights with genuinely participatory design and continuous community feedback, ensuring solutions aren't top-down technocratic fixes, but emerge organically from lived experiences and community needs, makes them more adaptable, relevant, less prone to neuromyths.
Grounding the science in real-world application, shaped by the community, powerful safeguard. What about the social ecological side? Any limitations there?
Definitely. For social ecological framework limitations, while Romolini et al.'s integrative framework is insightful, real-world application faces challenges. Data availability, privacy issues when mapping social networks, the difficulty and cost of measuring nuanced urban ecological variables consistently. Plus, social network analysis itself can sometimes overemphasize structure over dynamic power dynamics. Who really holds influence? Whose voices are marginalized within the network?
Important questions. How to overcome those?
The essay suggests incorporating qualitative methods and participatory action research. Not just quantitative data, but actively engaging community members, interviews, workshops, listening to stories, understanding lived experiences, indigenous knowledge. Ensures marginalized voices are represented, data is contextualized, solutions are culturally appropriate and equitable, combining the numbers with the narratives.
Right. Ensuring everyone's story and perspective is valued. And for permaculture, practical limitations in the city.
Permaculture limitations are significant too. As Janci van Rensburg and Purin noted, urban research is often sparse, anecdotal, Critics argue it can sometimes romanticize traditional knowledge without rigorous testing, and scalability for massive urban food demands is a real question.
It's not a magic bullet for feeding everyone in a giant city.
Probably not entirely on its own. And there's a socioeconomic risk. Without careful planning, urban permaculture gardens could become enclaves of privilege, inaccessible to those most in need, exacerbating inequality, even contributing to gentrification.
So how does the framework tackle that?
By embedding permaculture within that broader network of stewardship and educational spaces that explicitly prioritize underserved communities, integrating rigorous scientific monitoring for yields, biodiversity, health outcomes, making sure projects are ecologically productive and socially equitable, not just aesthetically pleasing or exclusive.
Okay, so consciously designing for equity from the start. Now, let's talk about the truly mind-bending analogies the synthesis invites. This is where the framework gets incredibly creative, helping us visualize the potential. Get ready to see your city in a completely new light. Imagine your city as a giant brain garden.
This is where the theory becomes almost poetic, deeply intuitive. The city as a brain garden metaphor helps grasp these complex interconnections holistically. Imagine streets, avenues, transit lines like neural pathways, axons connecting neighborhoods, which are like neurons processing info.
Okay, I can picture that.
Community centers, marketplaces, libraries become synaptic hubs, junctions, where interactions, exchanges happen, vital for the city's learning. Public parks, green spaces, urban forests act as dendritic trees, receiving environmental inputs, sensory info, bringing nature's wisdom, beauty, ecological services into the urban mind, like sensory organs for the city.
So a city park isn't just for relaxing. It's a vital sensory input organ for the city's collective brain. Profound.
And the StewMap network mapping stewardship groups. That's like the city's hippocampus storing collective memory about what works in stewardship, ecological knowledge. The city remembers.
It learns from experience.
And those permaculture gardens, they brilliantly act as the city's glial cells. In the brain, glial cells are essential support cells, supporting metabolism, storing nutrients, removing waste, modulating info flows. Permaculture gardens support the city's metabolism, food, store carbon, filter water, facilitate knowledge exchange. They're the support network.
Wow, and just like the brain rewires?
Cities can rewire infrastructures, redesign spaces,
Yeah.
reorganize social networks in response to crises, climate change, pandemics, economic shifts, constantly adapting, becoming more resilient. Neuroplasticity on an urban scale.
A truly holistic, dynamic vision. A self-regulating entity. Are there other structural parallels between these scales?
Yes, fractal patterns offer another fascinating connection. Permaculture often uses natural pattern spirals, branching networks seen everywhere in nature from leaf veins to river systems. Similarly, the brain's dendritic arborization, how neurons branch out complexly, often follows fractal geometry, maximizing connection surface area.
Like nature has a universal blueprint for efficient organization.
It really seems that way. Recognizing these fractal echoes suggests optimal designs at one scale, neuron branching, might inform designs at a larger scale, urban green infrastructure layout for water flow or access.
So nature's efficiency applies from microbiology to macro planning. What about the concept of edges? That came up too.
That brings us to the edge effect and zone of proximal development. In ecology, the edge effect describes how boundaries between habitats, forest, meadow, riverbank often have the highest biodiversity and productivity, richer mix of conditions. This mirrors the educational concept of the zone of proximal development, ZPD, the optimal learning zone, the edge between what a learner knows and what they can achieve with guidance, where growth is maximized.
Okay, so edges are fertile ground, both ecologically and educationally.
Exactly. Urban design can strategically harness these edges boundaries between neighborhoods, built natural spaces, different social groups, have incredibly productive learning zones. Imagine a community garden at a block's edge, bridging residential and commercial, becoming a vibrant hub for interaction, exchange, learning, like an ecological ecotone.
Turning boundaries into bridges. Love it. And finally, a connection to our evolutionary history.
Indeed, the evolutionary paradoxes. Our brains evolved over millennia in environments rich in biodiversity, unpredictable challenges, very natural sensory input. Our neural architecture is shaped by this coevolution with complex ecosystems. Yet modern cities are often monotonous, predictable, devoid of natural complexity. This mismatch might contribute to modern issues like cognitive fatigue, attention deficits, mental health challenges.
Our brains aren't designed for concrete jungles, essentially.
You could say that. Permaculture's emphasis on diversity, resilience, mimicking nature directly addresses this. By reintroducing ecological complexity, rich sensory experiences, hands-on engagement with nature into cities, it helps align urban environments with the brains they house, potentially promoting well-being and cognitive flourishing.
So it reframes the nature-culture split.
Yes, seeing it not as a dichotomy but a dynamic continuum. Human culture shapes nature through design, and nature shapes human culture and our very neurodevelopment, a reciprocal, integrated relationship.
Okay, this isn't just theory anymore. The essay proposes a concrete, tangible invention to bring neuropermaculture to life. The Brain Garden Commons, or BGCs. This is where you, the listener, can see how all these ideas could actually manifest, quite literally, in your own community. This is where vision meets reality.
This is definitely where the rubber meets the road, moving from concepts to actionable designs. So what exactly are BGCs? They're envisioned as deeply networked urban spaces, seamlessly integrating permaculture gardens, vibrant learning environments, and dynamic social ecological stewardship nodes.
The absolute key here. Genuinely co-designed from the ground up by diverse stakeholders, educators, neuroscientists, ecologists, permaculture practitioners, and crucially, community members themselves.
Ensuring they're responsive to local needs, culture, knowledge. Fostering true ownership, not a top-down mandate.
Exactly. Preventing top-down imposition.
So what would these Brain Garden Commons actually contain? What are their core components? They'd comprise several seamlessly integrated key components. First, central to the name, permaculture food forests. It's not just traditional community gardens, but biodiverse, multi-layered gardens, trees, shrubs, herbs, ground covers, designed using permaculture principles like stacking functions, guilds. Their purpose is multifaceted. Supply fresh, nutritious produce locally, sequester carbon, support pollinators, enhance biodiversity, and serve as dynamic outdoor classrooms.
The design itself reflects complexity.
Yes, deliberately following patterns, echoing neural networks, branching pathways, layered planting, interconnected water management, fostering intricate microhabitats, encouraging resilience, constant flow of life.
Fresh food, thriving nature, integrated right into learning. A living laboratory.
Precisely. Next, integrated with these food forests. Neurolearning spaces, classrooms, workshops, activity zones embedded within or right next to the gardens. Meticulously designed for experiential, hands-on learning using neuroscience principles, employing diverse, multisensory stimuli, varied textures, soundscapes, flexible seating, abundant natural light, all arranged to actively harness neuroplasticity, making learning more effective, engaging.
What about the curriculum?
Seamlessly integrating ecology, nutrition, systems thinking, even mindfulness. Imagine kids learning math by counting plants, understanding ecosystems by observing the food forest. Augmented reality could even visualize complex networks, connecting abstract concepts to the tangible environment.
Truly immersive, holistic learning, mind and body engaged. How do we manage and coordinate all this?
That's where stewardship hubs come in. Dedicated physical and digital facilities, nerve centers for local organizations and community groups, spaces for coordinating activities, meetings, exchanging data and knowledge, hosting volunteer programs, citizen science projects, community members collecting data on birds, soil, insects, and practical workshops, composting, rainwater harvesting, brain health.
And a digital platform.
Critically, yes,
Yeah.
a robust digital platform like StewMap, built on open standards. Mapping sociological interactions, tracking food yields, monitoring environmental improvements, even aggregating anonymized cognitive serial outcomes across the BGC network, creating that powerful dynamic feedback loop.
A data-driven nerve center for the city's living brain garden. What about feedback from the environment itself and the people using these spaces? How do we capture that?
Facilitated by sensor networks and biofeedback, BGCs would incorporate low-cost, unobtrusive environmental sensors, monitoring soil health, biodiversity, maybe acoustic monitoring of birds and insects, air quality, temperature, space utilization. On the human side, non-invasive biosensing heart rate variability, voluntary EEG during learning activities could provide anonymized feedback on stress, engagement, focus.
Helping educators adjust teaching, planners refine designs.
Exactly, providing valuable insights for research into those neurosocial ecological links. All data rigorously anonymized, aggregated, ethical use paramount.
Crucially, this all sounds amazing, but how do we ensure these spaces truly benefit everyone, avoiding gentrification becoming enclaves of privilege, that risk you mentioned earlier?
Addressed by robust governance and equity mechanisms, foundational to the BGC concept. Managed by multi-stakeholder councils, designed with diverse representation to ensure inclusivity, actively prevent elite capture, decision-making, integrating diverse knowledge systems, indigenous knowledge, lived experiences of marginalized voices, scientific expertise, funding intentionally diversified municipal budgets, grants, cooperatives, social enterprises for stability and independence,
And preventing displacement.
using policies like innovative land trusts, community land ownership models, conservation easements, legally ensuring these commons remain accessible and beneficial to the entire community, especially underserved neighborhoods, for generations.
The potential impacts sound vast, truly synergistic. Not just a garden or a school, but a whole new way of conceiving urban life.
They are indeed. The potential impacts are truly synergistic, the whole, far greater than the sum of its parts. BGCs could simultaneously address multiple challenges, enhance cognitive development via stimulating learning environments, reduce food insecurity with fresh, local produce, strengthen social capital through collaborative stewardship, improve ecological resilience, more green space, biodiversity, stormwater management, cooling effect.
And generating data.
Yes, generating invaluable real-world data for transdisciplinary research, proving the efficacy of this integrated approach. The synergy among these impacts powerfully exemplifies the holistic benefits, not solving one problem, but creating an integrated system that thrives on multiple levels, human well-being and ecological health in unison.
This isn't just about redesigning a park or school. This visionary framework has far-reaching implications for research, policy, even how we think about civilizational change and adaptation. This could truly transform the world you live in from the ground up.
The implications are indeed profound, spanning multiple domains, inviting us to rethink foundational approaches. Firstly, it demands a revolutionary transdisciplinary research agenda, compelling scholars to collaborate across neuroscience, ecology, sociology, urban planning, design in ways that rarely happen now. Breaking silos, asking urgent questions. How do specific BGC designs affect executive function, attention, empathy? How do social networks mediate ecological outcomes in cities? What designs optimize both neural engagement and ecological productivity? Longitudinal studies tracking people and communities over years are crucial.
So we'd have robust, actual data on how these integrated designs impact brains, social well-being, environment over time. That's a game changer for urban development.
Exactly. Leading directly to profound implications for educational reform. Education ministries, school boards could fundamentally incorporate neuro-permaculture principles into curricula, teacher training, school design. Imagine policies mandating new schools include extensive permaculture gardens, outdoor learning spaces as core components, not extras. Supplementing or replacing standardized tests with assessments of systems thinking, ecological literacy, collaboration, socio-emotional intelligence, vital 21st century skills.
A huge, needed shift from rote learning to holistic development. What about city planning itself, urban infrastructure?
For urban planning and infrastructure, planners could proactively allocate land for BGCs, targeting underserved neighborhoods where benefits are most needed. Integrating permaculture techniques, rain gardens, food forests into public housing, transforming sterile landscapes, and importantly, designing public transit to connect BGCs, creating a living network of regenerative infrastructure, like neural pathways, enhancing accessibility and connectivity.
The city's transit becomes part of its neural network. Love that. What about public health and well-being?
Significant implications for health and well-being. Public health strategies could explicitly recognize and leverage the deep links: environment, neurodevelopment, diet. BGCs as powerful preventive health interventions, helping reduce obesity, type 2 diabetes, stress, depression, cognitive decline by providing access to healthy food, physical activity, stress-reducing nature contact. Monitoring health outcomes allows agencies to quantify benefits, justify investment, shifting from reactive healthcare to proactive public health embedded in the city fabric.
Proactive, holistic public health integrated into living spaces, and in an era of climate change, increasing shocks. Resilience.
Resilience and adaptation are core. Facing intensifying climate impacts, BGCs act as vital micro-reserves, distributed infrastructure, buffering heat waves, absorbing floodwaters, providing local food during supply chain disruptions. Their network nature ensures redundancy. If one site is compromised, others function. Distributed resilience, collective robustness. Living infrastructure that actively adapts to and mitigates crises, making cities genuinely anti-fragile.
And finally, a powerful social and political implication: the heart of citizenship in a thriving city.
That's civic empowerment. Positioning residents not as passive recipients, but active co-creators and stewards of their environment profoundly promotes deeper democratic participation, strengthens social cohesion. Stewardship networks provide tangible pathways for marginalized groups to gain agency, influence resource management, fostering ownership, collective responsibility, community pride. A profound shift from passive consumption to active stewardship, co-creation, shared responsibility. This deep dive into neuropermaculture networks profoundly shows us that the complex, interconnected challenges facing our cities today demand far more than piecemeal, siloed solutions. They urgently require holistic reimagining of how human brains, intricate social networks, and vital ecological systems are fundamentally interconnected, constantly co-evolving, mutually dependent. By bringing together the insights of educational neuroscience, urban stewardship, and permaculture, we've seen how thinking about cities as living, learning, adaptive ecosystems can unlock an incredible transformative potential for innovation, resilience, and genuine regeneration. It's about designing cities that are truly intelligent, constantly learning, and deeply responsive to the dynamic nature of life itself.
So, what does this all mean for you? The next time you walk through your neighborhood, look at a vacant lot that seems neglected, or pass a schoolyard that feels underutilized, I want you to pause and think about its potential. Could that space become part of your city's brain garden commons? Could it be transformed into a vibrant place where young brains are nurtured and flourish, where fresh, healthy food is grown right within the community, and where communities come together to learn, share, and truly thrive, all interconnected in a living network? This visionary concept of neuropermaculture networks isn't just about sustainability, it's about creating cities that are truly alive, constantly learning, and profoundly connected to both human well being and planetary health. It's a powerful idea, a blueprint for a future that harmonizes human development with the natural world. Thanks for diving deep with us today.